Hey everyone, we're going to do a caricature today of our Vice President, JD Vance. And we're going to start with, remember this is a caricature, so we're going to give him a big head. That's going to occupy about half the page. His head's kind of squarish. And we're going to give him a little body. So I'm just going to block out enough room for his little body down here. Give me a sense of where I'm going with this. Very faint pressure at this stage. And we are now going to start asking ourselves what may or may not be unusual about his face. And we're going to begin with his eye level. Remember, eyes are normally in the middle of the head. Would you say JD's are in the middle of his head? Yeah, just about. There's the top of his scalp, probably right about here. So when the eyes are in the middle, we can't mess with that. That's an average, so we're going to accommodate that average. We're going to make an eye line across the middle. Notice his head is slightly turned to our left, and that moves the nose a little bit off center. The nose is about 2/5 of the way across the face. So we're going to sort of indicate that by making a vertical axis, indicating that that's sort of our line of symmetry. It's not exactly centered. It's about 2/5 of the way over. Now, we'll get into some specifics. And what do we notice about his eyes? Anything?
They're negative sample.
Are his eyelids very visible? No, they're almost invisible, kind of like mine. Are the upper corners of his eyes higher than the lower corners? The way we normally expect to see?
Wait, this part?
Normally the inside corners of the eyes are lower and the outside corners are higher.
Oh, yeah, then it's...
His are reversed, right? So we're definitely going to want to exaggerate the slant of the eyes. We're going to want to tilt them down this way a little more than they are. What about the eye spacing? How many eyes could you fit between these eyes?
Like a full one. Like a full eye.
I would say a whole eye and a half. So that's pretty wide spacing. And there's also wide spacing between his eyes and his cheekbones. So in short, his eyes are pretty small, and we're going to make them smaller. So let's give him a full 2 eyes in between his eyes, and then make a very small eye here and a small eye here. So we allow extra room for the space between the eyes and for the cheekbones. So that's our eye spacing. Now we're going to take another look at the shapes of the eyes, and we're going to try to draw them the way they are, but a little bit exaggerated. So I'm going to put the inside corner of the line of the eye right on the line. He's got a pretty deep kind of scoop for the lower lid, and then we're going to end it way down here below the line, and then we're going to come up and around. So we're pretty much drawing the shape we see, but we are pulling those outside corners further down than they are. And we're going to draw that little bit of eyelid there. And the iris, we're going to draw just what we see. And notice that because his eyes, he doesn't have heavy lids, but he does have this kind of heavy flesh hanging down over the eye, which I'm going to draw with that little, indicate it like that. We only see about half the iris. The pupil is way up here touching the upper lid. Sort of like that. And we're going to do the same analysis on the other side. We're going to start our eye up here on the line, scoop down and end the eye way down below the line. Notice on this side we don't see the upper lid at the outside corner of the eye. Instead we see more of it at the inside corner of the eye, which is an interesting asymmetry, and in a caricature we always want to emphasize those asymmetries. Everyone knows what asymmetry means, right?
Yeah.
Opposite of symmetry. And here's the iris, again about half hidden by the eyelid, and the pupil on this side up touching the eyelid. Notice I made this side just a little bigger than this one because it's slightly more turned towards us. Okay, so we're going to shade the eye socket a little bit, like this and like this. And notice our shadow map from the bridge of the nose comes up to about just above eye level, and then there's this little crease that goes across the bridge of the nose. And pay attention to my shading direction. I am shading that crease with vertical marks because it's not a deep crease. To show a really deep crease, I would just go across it, but to show a shallow crease, I use that broken line. The same for this one. I'm going to indicate it really lightly, and then I'm going to shade it going across. See how easy that is? And there's a little crease for the eye socket here, and a little indication of the eye socket here. And his eyebrows almost touch his lids, and they are quite wide. And since they're wider than average, I'm going to make them even wider. So I'm going to make them significantly wider than his eyes are, because in real life they're about as wide as his eyes. You know, my first impression here is he has small eyes and wide brows. So in my drawing, he's got smaller eyes and wider brows. And I'm going to make them just basically touching that lid. And remember, eyes are so important that if JD Vance was walking down the street in dark sunglasses, you probably wouldn't recognize him. So really, this is all really important stuff to get right. Okay, now we need to ask ourselves about nose placement. Don't jump right into drawing the nose. We are once again, we have to analyze this in terms of averages that we've learned. So here's the brow line, There's the bottom of the nose. I would say the bottom of the chin is somewhere about here. So we're going to ask ourselves, is this distance the same as this one? What do you think? No. And what does that tell us about his nose? Yeah, it's a little bit short. So we're going to, I think I'm going to need to drop his chin a little, but then I'm going to put the nose above the center here, and I'm going to make it even a little shorter than it is. And now we're going to ask ourselves about the width of his nose, which normally would be equal to the width of his space between his eyes. But his nose is what? A little bit wider than the space between his eyes. So we're going to make his nose just a little wider and shorter than it really is. So those are our parameters, and now we're going to draw the nose. So we've got the tip of his nose does project off the head a little, so we're going to put it to the left of our axial line of symmetry. So we're going to put the tip over here. Then we've got these little, I would call them little crescent moon shapes for the nostrils. Not really tic-tacs, more like thin crescent moons. And then notice that the ala, his ala comes down quite a bit below the nostril and curves up and ends above the nostril like that. It's a slightly pugnacious look, which means he looks like he's ready for a fight. Now notice we also have some interesting plane changes at the tip of his nose. We've got this piece of cartilage here is very well defined on his nose, so we've got this, I'm indicating this with very light broken lines, and then that kind of transitions into the shadow along the side of the bridge here and here. It's also important to shade the undersurface of the nose, which is mainly here, here, and along here, and put a little cast shadow under the nose. Those are the elements that make the nose look like it's actually projecting off the face. And we've got these little labial folds here and here. Okay. Now, it's traditional to make caricatures with a little more of an open smile. So we're going to switch our reference now and go to this one. I don't know. Should we do this mouth? It kind of changes his face a little. These folds get a little deeper. His lips are thinner because of the, I don't know, let's try it. His philtrum is of average length. So, and his mouth is kind of straightened out with this weird, slightly awkward smile. And there's a little shadow on the upper lip Now, when you're doing caricatures, very important not to try to draw the teeth one at a time. The thing we want to pay attention to is, first of all, his teeth aren't that big, so we're going to make them a little smaller. And we're paying attention to this line. This is like the line where the teeth end. And we're going to draw this pretty dark. It doesn't matter if you match it exactly. Just try to show that the teeth is a, turn the corner there, the teeth all get smaller because of foreshortening. And then we can go ahead and shade the tongue. Tongue is mostly in shadow. And we can drop a little more shadow definition along the margin of the upper lip. And then to show the definition between the teeth, you have to show a lot of restraint, and you don't draw a complete line. Just draw little tiny line segments, just hinting at it. And you see how by letting the white of the teeth go all the way across, his smile looks like normally kind of bright and happy. Whereas if you start outlining the teeth with a hard line, it's going to look like he's got big gaps between them. I'd say his bottom lip is unusually full, so we're going to make it fuller, like that. And because his mouth is open in this picture, and because he has a beard, we're going to end up like dropping the bottom of this head substantially. And we're going to just throw in a little mustache at the same time. Okay, so that beard does coarse up his cheeks, and I think I need to make his cheeks just a little wider. Based on the actuarial tables, chances are decent that this man will be our next president.
He's not coming to my house.
What'd you say?
She's not coming to my house.
Do you know what actuarial tables are, students? It means that there are decent odds that 78-year-old Mr. Trump will not survive his term, in which case JD will be our next president. Yeah, this is on YouTube.
Oh my gosh. They're gonna come for you. That's what's come to me.
Okay. Okay, so now he's got a little bit of crow's feet in this picture, a little creasing around the outside of the eyes because he's smiling. See how happy he looks? His mustache is very neatly trimmed, unlike mine. And now we're gonna take a look at his hair. So do you think he has a kind of a high forehead? I'm gonna say it's kind of high. Like, he's got a nice head of hair, but his forehead is kind of up there. So I'm gonna, because I had to extend the chin, I'm gonna put my hairline about where I had the top of his head before. And his hair has got this real sweep to it. You see what I'm drawing here? Yeah. It's a sassy little hairdo. And we do not want to give him huge ears because he does not, his ears lie really flat against his head. So we don't want to exaggerate that. Apparently, rumors that he wears eyeliner are false. He just has really nice lashes. So we're going to give him his lower lashes. And his eyes are very light blue. To really bring out the lightness of the eyes, I'm going to actually shade the whites of his eyes a little. Notice that the white of the eye, especially on the left, is a little bit darker than the iris. By shading that down a little, I really make the irises pop and give him that kind of ethereal glow to his blue eyes. And we do see his ear on this side pretty clearly, but like I said, it's lying very flat against his head, so it would not be wise to exaggerate that. And cartoonists often embellish the hair with, you see these little stray hairs that appear right at the part? A lot of cartoonists kind of play that up a little. Makes the hair look more natural, less like a helmet. I'm going to play up the sideburn a little too, just to show how kind of bushy he is. And just a little extra length to the chin here. Okay, magically, it's starting to look like JD Vance. Just need to crease that eyebrow down a little heavier over that eye. That's a really important, that kind of happy scowl. It's a big part of his look. Okay, we're going to go back to our other reference now. If I can find it. Okay, so we're gonna give him, we're gonna make it turn his body slightly to the side like it is in this. So here's his tiny little neckline. It's always a little difficult to fit these big heads onto these tiny bodies. There's his red tie. And he does have pretty wide shoulders, so we can do something with that. We could have him eating a donut. Remember, he went to the donut shop and ordered a glazed donut. That was a highlight of the campaign. Well, he ordered. He does support small businesses. So. So there's his little donut. You can use different props if you want. And you can see that I'm glad I left a little extra room because this whole drawing is occupying a little more space on my paper than I expected it to. And I have to just make up the body, but I'm gonna give him a very sort of upright posture. And I'm just going to do a first shading on his neck because it's in shadow and on his suit because it's blue. He never wears a white suit. And we can celebrate his patriotism with a little rendering of the flag hanging behind him. I think that's the state of Ohio. Is that Ohio on the right? I don't even know. No, what is that flag on the right? Well, there's the bell, everybody. Thank you for watching. Thanks for drawing at home. And there's our finished caricature of JD Vance.